Definitely one of those episodes that absolutely reminds me that it's a kids show.
Yeah. That's pretty lame, but there is some stuff in it that I
I
find
laughed
fucking
I
hysterical.
laughed out loud, like very loudly.
All
It's
right, who threw that?
that all right. And the way he gestures, I laughed so loud. That's exactly one of the moments.
Greetings, deflator mice. Welcome back to the Lazor Comb Podcast, the weekly show where we comb through random episodes of classic TV series with a fine-tooth laser. I'm one of your hosts, Christopher Siege.
I'm NeoCal.
And this week on the Lazor Comb Podcast, we are talking about the 22nd episode overall of the 1994 animated series, The Tick.
The Tick. Here we are.
Here
We
we
did
are.
it.
So if you're new to the podcast, how this show works is we pick a show at random, or in the case of this particular show, sometimes I put up Twitter polls with 4 choices and let my Twitter followers decide what we're going to be watching. And this week we came up with The Tick. So once we know what show we're going to be watching on any given week, we go to numbergenerator.org. We enter in the total number of episodes, and we hit the old generate button, and we watch whatever episode the random number generator provides us with.
And we ended up with episode 22.
Yep, it's just science.
Ants in pants, baby.
Ants in pants rotundo.
Sometimes you gotta just, get those ants out of your pants.
So talk about a little bit about The Tick for a moment. The Tick is a show from our childhood. It ran from 1994 to 1996. It was created by it's based on a comic book. It was created by a guy named Ben Edlund, who actually was very heavily involved with the production of the show. He wrote or at least co-wrote most of the episodes of this show, and I think this show ran for how many? 36 episodes in total. So 3 seasons of 13 episodes.
Not bad.
Actually, the 3rd season was only 12 episodes. The first 2 seasons were 13 episodes apiece. Not bad. It ran on Fox Kids, as I mentioned. And I remember the show being on when I was a child. Really loved it. Loved how just delightfully strange it was.
Yeah, so there's that weird block of this is a Canadian thing, but Teletoon. And oftentimes at night they were the weird things, right? Like the head, the Max, things like that. I feel like this is like those, but light. It's weird light. It's weird for kids.
Yeah. Unlike there was a wave of very bizarre, also comic book based shows, like you mentioned, like The Head and the Max, that were MTV productions. So MTV was kind of the in the mid 90s was kind of the leader of doing animated comic book adaptations of very weird properties.
Oh yeah.
And this is like the G-rated version of that.
Exactly. Yeah, this is the kid version for sure.
And it's got just enough weirdness to it that if you were at least somewhat of a strange child, you're gonna connect with this.
Yeah.
I feel like this show was probably also popular with stoner college kids at the time.
Oh, I wonder what crowds must have really liked this. I liked it as a kid. It was a treat. So much TV was bad that whenever The Tick was on, I was like, oh, fuck yeah. And you didn't need to watch every episode.
No,
right?
No.
It was good TV. yeah, sometimes like characters will show up, but if you're like, oh, who's this? Who's this? They say the character's name.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not like you're missing out on anything, any
Yeah,
our overarching story.
yeah, and the gist of what this show is about is a big muscly dude superhero named the Tick. He wears a blue costume, although I remember at one time like someone comments that he like that he's wearing a costume, and he very like jokily creepily says in like a joking kind of way, he's like, this isn't a costume.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember that. And I think with the there were two live action um series to follow post 2000s and 2010s.
Yeah,
Uh,
there was a live action show that ran on Fox for only lasted 9 episodes in 2001. Also just called The Tick. It
yeah.
starred Patrick Warburton
Yeah.
as the titular
Well
character.
cast. Yeah.
The character in the show, Deflator Mouse, there is a character similar to that in the live action Tick, but his name is Batman Well.
They call him Batmanuel. Yeah.
Batman Well.
Yeah.
And he is played by Nestor Carbonell, who, funny enough, like 7 years later, would go on to star in co-star in The Dark Knight as the mayor of Gotham. So from
Right.
Batman Well to Batman.
Wow. Amazing.
And immediately, like I remember seeing The Dark Knight in theaters with my partner at the time, and when we're first introduced to the mayor of Gotham, she like taps my shoulder and she's like, Psst, that's is that fucking Batman Well? And I'm like, is it? And she's like, it is. It's fucking Batman Well in a Batman movie.
Amazing. that she recognized him.
Yeah, because she was a big fan of that show too.
Yeah, and there was a Prime live action
Yep.
series that came out, what, 5 years ago? 6 or something like that? 5?
2016, 2017 sounds about right. I think it lasted 2 seasons.
I'm big fan of that. Big fan. I know other people were like, about it, but like, I really liked it.
I tried. I couldn't get into it. I should go back and give it another shot because I think I only watched.
I'd give it the
one or
old
two
maximal
episodes.
try, because holy cow, does it pick up like 4 or 5 episodes onwards. Absolutely. But yeah, I'm a big fan of that. And going back to watch the cartoon, it was jarring how much the cartoon is actually for kids. But once I put that aside, like it's absolutely for kids. There's no highbrow humor in it whatsoever for adults. But that being said, there were a couple times in this episode where I laughed very loudly.
Same. I believe I mentioned on last week's episode that I went back when the first season of the show came out on DVD back in 2006. So I was 21 at the time. I went and picked it up and watched through it, and still, even in my early 20s, still thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah.
But to get back to like overall what the show is
right.
about,
Yeah.
the show is about this big muscly dude in a blue suit named the Tick, titular character, who I think in the first episode, if I recall correctly, there is like a raffle, basically a raffle of superheroes that where it decides basically what city they go to protect.
He's assigned to the city. You're right.
Yeah. And I remember too, in the first episode, he even takes a Greyhound to the city.
He absolutely does.
And I believe
takes a bus there.
I believe the city in this in the Tick is just called the City.
Yep.
So yeah, he becomes champion of the city. He ends up palling up with a dude named Arthur, who's
just a dude.
He's just a dude. He's an accountant, I believe.
Yeah.
Is his day job, and he wears a moth suit. That it does actually explain in the show how he got the moth suit.
Yep.
Even in the cartoon, so it must in the live action shows at some point.
Yeah, it does.
But
yeah, I guess the vibe of it is that the Tick is very dumb but very pure, like very good, like uncorruptible. But his thing is he's indestructible.
Yeah.
You
Yeah. So
watch
that
throughout the cartoon, he can survive in space, he can be crushed, he can be dipped in lava. He's just this big, dumb, muscly dude that fights for justice.
Yeah, so the show deals with the Tick and Arthur going out on, as the Tick always calls them, patrols
Yeah.
to just to look for crime to fight, and that's basically it. The show has a very simple premise.
Yeah.
I remember even when I was a child, even being like 9, 10 years old, finding the notion, and like you see this in the intro, and it's from one of the early episodes where straight up an alarm clock goes off at like 6:30, 6 or 6:30 in the morning, and Arthur and the Tick have to get up so they can go on patrol. And even as
They're
like
roommates, by the way. Yeah.
they are roommates, yeah. Uh, and like even as like a 9 or 10 year old child, like the notion of like superheroes waking up to an alarm so they could go out and fight crime was just absolutely hysterical to me.
It's funny to me now.
It was
I
funny
can't
to me. It was funny to me even then,
Yeah, it's
especially
just
like because Arthur like wait, like the Tick is all ha ha, and Arthur wakes up and immediately is like, morning patrol, and he's like lunging over to like the coffee machine.
yeah. Yeah, the Tick is, it doesn't really talk about it, doesn't explain anything, and it doesn't need to. Doesn't explain what entity the Tick is.
No.
Or right. And I enjoy that. I enjoy that a lot. And one of the themes throughout every episode is that all of the heroes are completely incompetent in the city, except for
I think her name is American Maid.
American Maid, who
Yeah,
takes her
she
job very seriously.
and she's pretty capable, and she seems to be the only one who is capable. So the main supporting cast is American Maid, and I can't remember if she was American Maid in this show or if she was in the live action show.
In
But
this,
they're basically the same character, because
yeah.
there is a character very similar to her, just like with Deflator Mouse and Batman. Well,
Yeah.
there's a similar character to American Maid in the 2001 live action show as well. But yeah, American Maid, out of all of them, is the most intelligent and most capable, takes it the most seriously. And uh, rounding out the main cast is, as I mentioned, Deflator Mouse, who is kind of cowardly, very much looks at this as like a job that he doesn't want to do.
He wants the perks, but he doesn't want to do the difficult things.
Yeah.
He's probably the most cowardly. He pretends to faint often. Sometimes the character cast will just turn around and go to talk to him, and he's just not there. Just repeated stuff like that, despite the fact he's clearly spent a lot of time making his realistic bat outfit.
Yeah. Well, and
he's just a rich dude.
Deflator Mouse even means the bat.
Yeah, the bat.
Yeah,
it's German.
German, yeah. It's also a name of a famous German play, I believe.
Oh, an opera or something like
an
that.
Opera,
yeah,
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah. Deflator Mouse. Deflator Mouse, interestingly enough, is voiced by legendary voice actor Cam Clark.
Who?
Oh
yeah, it's obvious in hindsight. Yeah.
Who? Fans of this show and fans of me and Cal and the other shows that we do will know that we reference Metal Gear a lot. Cam Clark.
What?
Cam Clark was would later, not too long after this, actually, just a few years, would go on to become the voice of Liquid Snake. In the first game, and then cameo appearances in later games in the series. Because spoilers for a nearly 25-year-old game, but Liquid dies at the end of that.
But don't worry.
Fox
Somebody saves his hand, his arm.
Yeah.
What a strange series, man. What a batshit fucking crazy series.
That gets semi-retconned in MGS4.
Right.
It's all nanomachines. Right, so it is actually Liquid's arm, Uh, for anyone who doesn't know, Liquid dies at the end of MGS1. Also in MGS1, another villain, his right-hand man, ha ha ha, no pun intended, gets his hand cut off, and you find out in Metal Gear Solid 2 that Revolver Ocelot now has a hand again because they grafted Liquid's arm onto him for some reason. But then in that game, it makes it seem like the ghost of Liquid Snake is possessing Revolver Ocelot, and they're like vying for control.
Yeah.
And then in Metal Gear Solid 4, they reveal that yes, he did use Liquid's arm to replace the one that he had lost, but like he wasn't actually possessed by ghosts or anything. It was nanomachines and like a combination of like drugs and psychotherapy to like and hypnotherapy to like make him think that he was Liquid Snake because reasons.
How can you like Metal Gear Solid and not like anime? I'm just saying that's the most anime bullshit I've ever heard. But yeah, Liquid Snake is Deflator Mouse.
Yep.
And yeah, every episode deals with like the extremely bizarre mixed with the very mundane.
Yeah, there's even a line from the Tick in this episode where he even says the joys of the mundane.
Yep. The joys of the mundane. It's simple pleasures like this that differentiate heroes from villains, Arthur. Something like that.
That seems like a good time to segue into actually talking about the episode.
Yeah.
All right, so
but there's an alarm, and I find it funny. It can be an alarm for anything. It just sounds like a fire alarm, and immediately the Tick just grabs Arthur and jumps off of the building. And I'm like, man, the damage that the Tick does to the infrastructure of the city, there's no way that that they would keep this guy in the city. And indeed,
Arthur's wings are wet, so he can't actually like fly.
Yeah.
So they just crash to the ground.
Yeah, but he's holding Tick's holding him, so he just like the Tick gets half buried into the concrete.
And I like the line, like the Tick is like, Arthur, old chum, can you wiggle your toes? And he's like, yes. And he's like, great, let's go.
Great, let's go. Because yeah, he's like, oh, I hurt my spine. Yeah, so you're not paralyzed, we're good. And he just runs off carrying Arthur.
Yeah. Very you gotta admire the Tick's plucky enthusiasm.
I really love that. And anybody that hasn't and has Prime, absolutely, if you like the Tick cartoon, absolutely go check out the Tick. The actor nails the unrelenting like positive enthusiasm to the point where it's so humorous. And I find it humorous in here, even when he's being like insulted or degraded or whatever, he doesn't waver ever.
Yeah.
What do they do? They like run to a jewelry store?
Yeah, so they run to a jewelry store that's been robbed, and the Tick is like, oh, did they take jewels? And the guy working there is like, no. Did they take money? They must have taken money. No, they didn't take money. Oh, well, that he says something else.
Then
and
what did they take?
Then what? I don't understand. Like, I'm stumped. What did they take? And the guy says, oh, they took the glass.
Yeah, like out of the
windows. Yeah.
Yeah.
They took all the windows.
So right away, I'm like, what's going on here? What could possibly anyone use for glass? And they certainly use it for something. So what happens here? They intercept another crime as it's happening.
The Tick spots someone in a seemingly a woman in a trench coat and a big Carmen Sandiego hat.
Yeah,
I'm actually getting like pretty Carmen Sandiego vibes.
Yeah, a lot. The big hat.
Carrying a big window pane, and he runs and chases her down and tries to stop her. And then she says in this like kind of modulated voice, Barbara, can I get some help here?
Yeah, and I love it. The Tick replies, well, my name's not Barbara, but as I was saying to Arthur back there, the problem with evil is And in the background, there's another like Carmen Sandiego like figure who must have super
It's just
strength.
Carmen Sandiego from now on.
Yeah. Has super strength and throws, what is it, a garbage truck at him?
A dump truck, garbage truck or a dump truck. Anyway,
Big ass truck.
Big ass truck.
Yeah.
Throws it and
crushes him.
It crushes him, and the tick like pushes it off of him, and he very hilariously is like, "All right, who threw that?"
And the way it's animated, he just tosses it off him, and he goes, "All right, who threw that?" Like it's just like, I don't know why. I laughed very, very loudly at that part.
So did I. I don't know what it is. It's just something about the delivery and like the matter of factness of it. Like,
yeah, the matter of, and just how innocent the question is too.
So he follows one of the Carmen Sandiegos into an alley, and
you're gonna be in big trouble, Barbara.
Yeah, and he's like, "Oh, you have something, like something's on your eye," and he goes to like touch it, and the eyes just like fall out, and then like ants start crawling onto the tick, and the tick fucking loses his shit.
Loses his mind.
Very hilariously, he just starts screaming bloody murder. He's like, ah! And starts
and he starts
away.
Repeating, ants in pants. Ah! 10 out of 10. He just, not only does he run down the street, he reaches, there's a sign, I missed it the first time I watched it, a sign that says city limits, and he runs past that. He runs past like some oil rigs and
screaming bloody murder
across the countryside. He just like disappears. So the this episode structured in a way like there's gonna be ants no matter where you run, dude. But anyways, it's structured in a way where earlier we kind of cut to the tick talking to a therapist, and then it showed the rest of the scene happen, and now we're presumably in the present again with the tick talking to Captain Sanity.
Yeah, Captain Sanity.
Yeah, and his superhero sanitarium. There we go. Ugh.
Yeah, and he's just a head in a jar.
He's a head in a jar, and he's like, "Oh, so Mr. the Tick, what brought you to my sanitarium?" And Tick's like, "I had a coupon." Do you remember what was that like app, Groupon? Do you remember Groupon was like the hottest shit for like 2 years?
It's still around.
Is it? Anybody still use Groupon? I haven't heard about it in like 5 years.
Yeah, Optics International, which is where I usually like to get my my glasses and frames from. They have an ongoing Groupon where it's like, oh, pay $20 for $200 off your next frames, plus also get a bonus pair free. They've been doing that shit for like nearly a decade now.
Okay, to promote themselves too. Yeah.
I've utilized that a couple of times. In fact, I should do that soon. Once again.
Get some glasses, but get them Morpheus-ized.
Get some shades like the ones that I'm wearing right now, except but prescription.
Yeah, now you're talking.
Yeah, I do have a pair of prescription aviators that I've been wearing for I think I got them about 6 years ago now.
Yeah, but it's Morpheus time now.
Morpheus time now. New Matrix movie coming out soon.
Absolutely. And where were we? Oh, he's talking to the therapist head. And I like this. He's like, he starts asking him questions, and he's like, "Hey, that's personal," or something like that.
Yeah.
And there's a funny part here too. What does he say? He's like, "Yeah, what does my mother have to do with any of this?" And the therapist is like, "Well, we don't know that yet, do we?" just relax. I am a professional. And the tick is like, you're just some head in a water cooler.
Yeah, you're just some head in a water cooler, and then the therapist is like, now, we're not here to talk about my struggles.
Yeah. Now you're
Oh,
getting defensive.
yeah, now you're getting defensive. And then he
I love this. He's like, what the heck even happened to you, man? like, there's no filter. And he's like 9 feet tall, like he's gigantic, right? So he can only a half fit on the therapist couch. And he reaches across the room with one of his gigantic arms and just like so casual, like, what the heck happened to you, man? I don't know why. Just the delivery and the writing of the show kills me.
it's pretty great. The float Captain Sanity, that was his name?
Captain Sanity. Yeah.
Captain Sanity brings in his assistant, a dude
God.
named Taft, and it becomes a recurring joke in this episode that he's basically Shaft.
Yeah.
And I'm like, was that shit even relevant in the 90s? No.
No. Kids probably knew the sound bite, right? Like the shaft. But other than that, whatever. Yeah. And what happens? Because the tick has gone to the old sanitarium, Arthur teams up with American Maid.
Yeah.
I can't remember for the life of me why she drives a big van with a croissant on the top.
Yeah, I don't know.
I can't remember either.
I was gonna try and speculate, but I'm like, no, I'm not there.
Yeah. No. Yeah, and they run across more Carmen Sandiegos stealing panes of glass.
An American Maid mentions that she told Deflator Mouse to recruit as many heroes as possible. And so he shows up with I can't remember what his name is, but he's this dude with like a spiky purple helmet.
Sewer urchin.
Sewer urchin? Okay.
Sewer urchin.
Sewer urchin. And like
deflator mouse, sewer urchin, and a kid.
Aqua boy.
Fish boy. And he's just a kid with green skin.
With green skin, sitting in a kiddie pool.
Wearing like dish gloves. And what happened? Deflator Mouse is babysitting him because reasons? I don't know.
No. So American Maid told Deflator Mouse to go out and recruit as many heroes as possible. And when they show up, she's like, is this it? And he was like, hey, this is all I could come up with on such short notice. And she's like, oh, what's Fish Boy's deal? And he's like, well, he has a cold, so we promised his mother we would keep him in water.
That's it.
And then I can't remember what it is, but like Fish Boy would like shortly after is like, hey, you told my mom blah blah when he asks
the tick
for
would
something.
Be here.
Oh, that the tick would be here, right?
Hey, you promised me that the tick would be. He just wants to see the tick.
He just wants to see the tick, and he's like, hey, you promised my mom the tick would be here. And Deflator Mouse like leans down and says to him, he's like, I promised your mom a lot of things, kid.
That's another time where watching it by myself, I just laughed out loud. I was like, the writers had so much fun and so much freedom with the show. I love it. Yeah. I promise your mom a lot of things, kid. Jesus Christ. You know what? I take it back that this is only written for kids.
That's some drunk stepdad vibes right there.
Yeah. And Jesus. And drunk stepdad vibes. And when we got back to the tick getting therapy from Taft.
Yeah.
Taft puts on a big realistic ant costume and starts wrestling the tick.
We get it like a whole bunch of like shot, like every time like we see him and Taft interact going forward, um like we just see like Taft like dive onto him trying to go for a pin. Like every
Diving
time.
onto him to going for a pen, and he's in an ant costume and
A banana
a
costume.
banana costume. He's dressed like an old lady in one, and he's like, "You must be afraid of your aunt," because there's a correlation between ants and his
Yeah.
auntie, and that's the gimmick going on there,
Yeah, that's the
and
recurring
none of
joke
it's
there.
working. Surprise, surprise. In fact, Captain Sanity at one point, it's when he's wrestling, Taft is dressed as a giant ant. He's flicking the lights on and off as like Taft is coming towards him, like clacking his ant like claws, and he's screaming and he's like, there, is this helping? Is this working? Are you less scared? I hate this guy.
One point, Cap, we're like jumping all over the place now,
Yeah,
but like
yeah.
whatever. There's this one point where uh Captain Sanity is like hypnotizing uh
Yeah.
the Tick, and he's like, "Oh, you're getting very sleepy. You're getting very sleepy." And the Tick is just like, "I'm getting very sleepy. I'm getting very sleepy," or whatever. He's repeating back to him. And he's like, "And I'm going to snap my fingers, and you're going to wake up and be out of it." And so he does that. He's like, "Now, what? Tell me how do you feel? What do you remember?" And the Tick's like, "Well, I remember you trying to hypnotize me."
Yeah. uh, this is great. There's some cuts in between all of these other scenes as they're happening, and American Maid and Deflator Mouse and Arthur tracking down where the ants are coming from by following the Carmen Sandiego clones.
Yeah.
Um, and what is it? Oh, the police chief, right? The police chief keeps trying to bug the mayor, and the mayor's such a chill guy about like, we need to come down and like arrest these ants. And
My boys at the precinct are working on ant-sized handcuffs.
yeah, and the mayor just like kind of looks at him and he's like, and then it just cuts to cuts to another scene.
Yeah, and yeah, there's another bit where like the mayor gets a phone call on his red phone,
Oh, at
which
the end to yeah, yeah, that's when shoot, what is that for? I can't remember, but he's got like a
it
Batman
reminds me of the
phone.
bat. Yeah, I was gonna say it reminds me of the bat phone from the '60s Batman.
Yeah.
I'm surprised it didn't make the same sound effect, honestly.
Mm.
Yeah, he gets a call from like the National Guard and about like wanting to deal with this ant problem by uh, just with like ballistic missile strikes.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so basically, like what the ants are doing with the ants are building a giant ant hill like as high as they possibly can, and what they're doing with like all of this glass is they're making a giant magnifying glass,
They're
and like
melting it all down to make
yeah,
a
they're making a
magnifying
giant
glass.
magnifying glass, and this is the reveal of this is preceded by Deflator Mouse making a comment about how he used to like burn ants with a magnifying glass and
And then
sunlight.
when they see the giant magnifying glass, he's like, no, this is before they see it. They're like, you don't think this is some plot of revenge, do you? And what there's a C plot going on. The C plot is a Doctor Strangelove. It's obviously supposed to be Doctor Strangelove, like mad scientist, goes to the mayor and tries to convince him that he's going to make a giant nougat chocolate bar
Right, it's this
to
like
lure the
German
ants.
scientist. It's very Doctor Strangelove.
Yeah, to lure the ants. And the mayor's like, well, what happens when the ants eat all of the nougat? We don't know, but we already made it. It was in the city's budget.
He even mentions like I think you'll find like if you look at the city's budget, like the making of this is well within
Yeah,
spending limits or
yeah.
something along those lines.
Poor mayor. Like what he has to deal with.
Yeah, and so the ants are like superheating the city with this magnifying glass,
Yeah, it's
and
revealed that the queen is the sentient one and can speak English because she addresses the city and says that they're going to burn it down. Do
yeah,
you remember that? She like goes to a microphone and somehow it's connected to all the speakers in the city.
somehow, yeah,
Yeah. When
and
you're a kid, you don't know how sound works.
and the mayor ends up calling. Uh, I can't remember exactly how it goes down, but like
They
once they
get
feel like they've
they're
exhausted all of
desperate.
their option, they're desperate. I think like the chief of police or something like recommends to the mayor. He's
He's
like, "What
like,
about calling the tick?"
I love we're gonna have to call the tick. Yeah, I love that their last resort.
Absolute last
They're
resort.
gonna get nuked by the army. The city's heating up. In fact, I think they're in like tank tops and their underwear.
Yeah, yeah, just
They're sweating
just sweating. Yeah,
because the magnifying
profusely.
glass is like spinning like a lighthouse and lighting the city up. So yep, last resort, they call the tick.
Yeah, they call the tick. They call the tick literally at Captain Sanity's whatever sanatorium, and like the
Superhero sanatorium. Yeah.
superhero sanatorium, and they get Captain Sanity on the phone, and they're like, "Oh, we need to talk to the tick," and like tries to like stonewall them, being
Yeah.
like, "Oh, we're like in the middle of a session here,"
He's
and
very sensitive right now.
and they insist. So he puts the tick. He's like, oh, all right. So he puts the tick on the phone, and then the tick is like, what? The city in danger? I must go. And Captain Sanity is like, well, what about your fear of ants? There's going to be ants out there.
There's no time to think about that now. And then past episodes explain it better. He yells, no time to think about that. Spoon! And he charges, presumably just smashes through the wall and leaves. He yells spoon, which is
His
much
battle
to
cry.
his battle cry. He tries to get Arthur to say it too. Arthur, I think he comes around at the end of one of the seasons and ends up saying it begrudgingly, but yeah.
Yeah.
There was an episode where they were trying to decide on a catchphrase or like a battle cry, and Arthur wasn't coming up with anything, and they were making tea or drinking coffee, and the tick just happened to be holding a spoon. So that's what kind of show this is.
Yeah, and he starts like, if I recall correctly, he starts like talking up like how magnificent the spoon is, and like how mighty its shape and perfect its shape is, and like the
How
curvature
useful
of
it
it.
is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then we get like a little like the Tick's soundtrack as he's like leaping across the city on rooftops.
And then he
Again,
yells spoon. Yells spoon
again,
again.
he's destroying the rooftops.
Yeah, causing just mass carnage.
I love that when he, like you said, he says yell spoon again. There's like an echo effect as he's just screaming it into the sky.
Yeah.
So weird. And oh, completely missed this part. The ants tricked the superheroes, American Maid, Arthur, Deflator Mouse, Sewer Urchin, and Fish Boy,
Fish boy, yeah. We'll go with that.
into a human ant tank thing. You know those flat planes?
Ant farm.
Ant farm. There we go. Yeah, we got there. And they're inside and they're just like slowly being cooked, and they have to like navigate this dumb maze, and they do for a while before they give up. And yeah, they're kind of just helpless.
Yeah, and
Arthur snaps at Sewer Urchin.
oh yeah, because Sewer Urchin is like, yeah, definitely.
Yeah, we're definitely doomed. Yeah, definitely. We're all gonna die. Definitely. And Arthur's like, will you stop saying that word? There's no point in it. Why do you keep saying definitely?
Not everything is definitive. God, this is like the precursor to like literally how much literally has become.
Kind of,
Uh,
yeah, because it's a
yeah,
nonsense word for sewer urchin. He just says it in between his sentences.
yeah, and it's like literally has become a word that is just overused by people nowadays.
I hate that
Not,
literally has literally the opposite meaning as well.
yeah,
That's weird to me.
yeah. Not everything is literal, guys. I
Not
actually
everything is literal.
I actually find, and I don't bother with this anymore, but when maybe like 10 years ago, when literally it started becoming a thing that everyone was, like a word that everyone was overusing,
Yeah,
I started pointing out like the logical fallacy in their
of
statements,
course.
and no one would ever get it. Like someone was saying to me once, uh, they were talking about like killing like a big spider with bug spray and like they said I literally nailed it with the can of bug spray. And I'm like, so you grabbed a nail and then
You use the can of bug spray to hammer it in.
to hammer it in, and they're like, what? I'm like, you said you literally nailed that spider with the can of bug spray. And they're like, yeah, I literally nailed it. And I'm like, so what you're saying is you hit the head of a nail into this spider with the can of bug spray. They're like, what are you talking about? And
Fuck all y'all.
I'm like, nothing. Forget it.
There's a 20-year-old Mad TV sketch where there's two people, and these are recurring characters on Mad TV. Uh,
Right.
I loved it when it was on TV. Uh, it teetered out and got less and less funny, but whatever.
That's why
Um,
it's not around anymore.
yep. And but young me liked it more than SNL. I understood Mad TV's stupid humor better than Saturday Night Live.
Mhm.
And there's a sketch where there's two adults, there's a guy and a girl, and they're at a baseball game. And they're watching it's kids' baseball game, and they're watching all of the kids, and they're like eating popcorn and stuff. And they're like, oh my God, like if we watch another strikeout, I'm literally going to die. Like I'm literally going to die. And then it cuts to the guy, and he's like, these are like literally like the worst kids, like worst baseball players I've literally ever seen. And the whole skit is these people absolutely overusing literally.
Yeah.
So people in the 90s started to realize that this word was being used for emphasis rather than its literal definition.
Yeah.
Um, and somebody like freaks out at them in the sketch, and it's just like, excuse me, like we're trying to watch our children, like just play like a game for fun.
Can you literally shut up?
Can you literally shut up? And they're like, wow, okay, like literally up my ass about it, fine. And and eventually the skit ends with one of the parents being like, okay, well, which one of them is your kids? And they're like, oh, ew, no, we would never have kids. Yeah, that's like literally the grossest thing ever. So they're just there fucking there to shit talk a bunch of kids, and their kid isn't even playing. And so I was 13, 12-ish when I had seen that, and I got a glimpse into that word changing definition. It no longer was about something that meant exactly what you were saying. It was a word for emphasis. And I
They
guess it pissed other people off too, because there was a whole sketch about it.
they they saw the writing on the wall with
Yeah,
that one.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe we should start just saying definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. We're in trouble. We're cooked. Definitely.
Yep. This show is this episode is definitely over now.
Yeah, it's definitely over.
Definitely
Well,
over.
definitely over. Oh, I don't even remember what happens. What does the tick do? He breaks the magnifying glass.
He fights the queen ant.
Oh, she turns into a giant ant by amassing all of the ants. Right.
Yeah.
Betty, queen of the ants.
Betty.
Right. She turns into a giant ant.
Yeah, and the tick fights. I don't know.
They fight throughout and the tick wins.
They fight, the tick wins, the day is saved.
He ends up swimming through. They fight in the city and they're trashing stuff. He ends up swimming through them rather than trying to squish all the ants. And then he bursts out of like the ocean of ants and he's like, ha ha! And he holds up a single ant. And the idea that he knew which exact ant to look for in the ocean of millions of ants is fucking stupid and ludicrous to me. But he captured the queen, who is like commanding them all. So the problem's gone once they imprisoned the queen. And I'm like, wait a second.
Those tiny handcuffs coming in handy finally.
Yeah, finally. It paid off. And yeah, they arrest Betty, Queen of Ants. Oh, and what's the resolution here? They're like, oh, Arthur's like, oh, and the rest of the superheroes, they're like, I just did air quotes for anybody listening. So you got over your phobia of ants. It turns out, Arthur, that I never had a fear of ants. I just thought, like, ants coming out of pants was really creepy. Yep. He was never afraid of ants.
Problem solved then, I guess.
Problem solved. I don't know what lesson there is to take out of that.
I don't know either, but
at the very end he says, and really, isn't sanity just kind of a one-trick pony? I mean, all you get is one trick. Yeah. All right. You only get one trick, rational thinking. But when you're good and crazy, the sky's the limit. This show a dumb show.
I don't know karate, but I know crazy.
Yeah. And that's the tick, everyone.
Yeah, that's the tick. So that was episode 22 of the tick. Cal, closing thoughts?
More for kids than I had remembered, like I said, but funnier, really way funnier than than it had any right being.
I feel like
I enjoy it a lot.
I feel like watching this show as a kid, like I would have gotten more wrapped up in the plot and what was happening. Whereas watching it as an adult, like I'm appreciating more subtleties in the humor much more than the actual like series of events.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
As a kid, you like really care about what stupid like little funny plots, and you laugh at the ants and you want to see them ride the giant ant and fight it. But as an adult, you're noticing all the subtle, ridiculous humor, and it's well written. The humor, I would say.
All right, who threw that?
What the heck happened to you anyway?
I promised your mom a lot of things, kid.
Turns out I was never afraid of ants to begin with. Stop it! Stop saying definitely. You definitely this, definitely that. Shut up. Not everything is definitive.
That was episode 4 of the Lazor Comb Podcast, where we covered episode 22 of The Tick. Next week, we will be back with episode 5 of the Lazor Comb Podcast. We might be having a special guest on that episode. Pretty excited about that. They chose the show that we're going to be talking about next week. And that show is a little something called Strangers with Candy.
I've never seen it.
I've never seen it either, but when I worked at a movie, a video rental store, movie gallery, when the Strangers with Candy movie came out. And so I remember seeing that DVD cover on the new release wall for the longest time.
I had thought it was a movie. Yeah, because I saw it too.
Yeah, there definitely was a movie. It came out in 2005.
Hmm.
Um, but it was based on a show that lasted apparently 3 seasons.
Oh,
That
damn. Okay.
3 seasons of 10 episodes, so 30 episodes in total. All right, we're gonna go to random number generator or numbergenerator.org to figure out what episode we're gonna watch. And here we go. 17. What episode is that? To Love, Honor, and Pretend. The synopsis of that episode is Mr. Noblet grows jealous of the special fake bond between Mr. Jelinek and Coach Wolf as Jerry's control issues threaten her own fake union in a marriage experiment gone awry. That's what we'll be talking about next week, folks. Keep an eye out for that. So thanks for everyone for listening. Best way to support the show, go to patreon.com/lazorcomb, LAZORCOMB. We're starting at the $5 and up tier. You get hours every week of bonus preamble audio for this and all of the shows we do. It's also a $10 tier. And at the $25 tier, you get a t-shirt, you get monthly commentary tracks. You also get to pick a show for us to talk about on this podcast. So patreon.com/lazorcomb. Social media, facebook.com/lazorcomb, spelled the same way. You can also follow me on Twitter @lazorcomb, also spelled the same way. Cal, where can people find you?
You can find me on Twitter @NeoCal. That's Neo_KAL.
All right. And whatever platform you're listening to this on, give it a like, give it a subscribe, give it a 5-star rating. Anything helps us out with discoverability. And I already said what we'll be back with next week, so I think that about does it. I've been one of your hosts, Christopher Siege.
I'm NeoCal.
And until next week, spoon! Bye-bye.